I'm on this new medication, and
Oh,
I don't eat like at all during the day. So I just ate like my first meal like an hour ago. That was my first time eating in like 24 hours.
jeez.
Yeah,
Is it like ADHD medication or what?
yeah, yeah. I'm on Adderall. Yeah,
I
but
hate that
That'll
stuff.
that'll that'll zap your appetite pretty quick.
yeah, but dude, first off, welcome back, guys. It's literally like last week, so has been very long, but uh, dude, lots of stuff going on, man. I got quite a few. I don't know if y'all wrote like down notes or anything, but I just wanted to start it off from the beginning and just talk about this main event on Saturday. I mean, it's Thursday today, and I'm still like in shock and awe about what Izzy actually did and like how he was able to. I mean, because when you see somebody lose a title like that, it's a bitter pill. But then like for for he to come back and win that title in that fashion, I mean, it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen in MMA. Just like like just how the odds were stacked up against him, and literally just how he just doubted or finished him in the second round. Man, not what I was expecting.
That was
Yeah.
wild, dude. The craziest thing to me was, aside from that, is I went 1 for 5. Or sorry, no, yeah, I went 1 for 5 on all my main card picks.
Yeah, I don't
I
think any
had
of us did well.
I
no,
didn't do
I
good
had
either.
Raw
I did.
Rosas winning.
Well, yeah, I think everybody had Roses winning. I mean, I did, but
Yeah,
now the thing about that fight that I'll say really quickly is that I don't feel like that fight shouldn't have happened. Because you got Roses, who is 18 years old, going in against a guy who's 25, who's done it way longer than him, and Roses just gets completely destroyed in there. But it seems like towards the end of that first round, like he just forgot how to fight. He wasn't throwing strikes, and he tired himself out literally in the very beginning of the fight. And he going shooting straight for those takedowns in the very beginning. But yeah, but back to the main event. So after this main event took place, I was already thinking about what was going to be next. I know obviously like they weren't. Izzy's already like not speaking about it at all. I watched his press conference after the fight, and he said that he's not even paying attention like to who's next for him. Um but you look at the position that the middleweight division is in, and just tell me how weird it is. Uh,
He's cleared everybody out.
yeah, exactly. So a good point that I heard is that the highest ranked guy who he hasn't fought is Duplessis. So now people are saying that that's what should be next for him, because that's the only guy in the division who's the highest ranked and the guy that he hasn't fought yet. I mean, and y'all heard what he said about him in the post fight press conference. If y'all watched Izzy's drag his carcass across South Africa, so it sounds like there's a bit of some tension going on between those two. So I don't know if that fight's actually going to happen. It might be a while before Izzy even fights again. But I just wanted to get y'all's take on who do y'all think what should be next for Izzy at least.
so yeah, it's weird because everybody in the top, yeah, you're right. The middleweight division is so weird right now because I mean, obviously Izzy's got the belt back, and if you look at the top 5, I think it's. I mean, Herrera's said he's moving up to 205, but as of right now, it's Pereira's at 1. I think Whitaker's at 2. Either Whitaker or Vittori
I think
at 2
it's
and 3.
Rob.
It's
Okay,
Whitaker
so
and then
yeah,
Vittori.
so Pereira, Bobby Knox, Vittori, that Cannonier and Costa, and all of those he's either fought once and beat or fought twice and beat. And then
Yeah.
you've got, I think it goes like Strickland. No. It's Dracus Duplessis who's at 6, and then 7 Strickland.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think Izzy could honestly choose to fight whoever he wants. It probably is going to be left open to him, but I think what makes the most sense is having him fight Dricus du Plessis for the title, or maybe if the time frame works, having Dricus du Plessis fight Vittori or Cannonier for the title shot. That's what I think
Mm-hmm.
works best, and that seems like the only reasonable option to go in.
Yeah.
To me, at
Yeah, I
least.
kind of I agree. I think I think I agree with like your point where it's weird right now because everybody in the top 5 besides Costa and Cannonier, he's beaten twice. He's already beaten him once and then lapped him again a second time. So he really doesn't have anybody like that fresh name that you can get.
Right.
If they set up the du Plessis fight now and they don't give du Plessis a #1 contender fight, Izzy's probably going to clean him up like
Mm-hmm.
pretty quick
Yeah.
because du Plessis, if you watch du Plessis, his last 2 fights against Derek Brunson and Darren Till, both those fights he was gassed by round 2.
Who are class
And
fighters, by the way, very top
right,
level
right,
guys.
yeah. I mean, they're not.
Derek Brunson arguably should have fought for a world title, but it's crazy that he never has.
Yeah, and so he's not. It's not like he's fighting bad guys, but he's fighting guys who are like Darren Till's on a slide. Derek Brunson's getting a little bit older, and he's still not even looking. He's not beating them super dominantly, not super convincingly. So
Mm-hmm.
they could make the du Plessis fight because it makes sense. Give him a new name, but I still think Izzy cleans him up
Du
pretty
Plessis has
quickly.
got what? He's got what? 5 wins under his belt,
I'm
Yeah,
not
5 or
sure.
6, something like that.
something like that.
But either way, I mean, it's not like he's on a bad roll or anything, but there's other guys too. I mean, Costa, I know him and Chimaev
Oh
have
yeah,
something booked for October, so that kind of puts them two on hold until
yeah.
then. So it just depends on what they want to do really until October. If Adesanya wants to fight again, or if he wants to wait around for that Abu Dhabi card and then say whoever wins that fight, I'll take the winner. Kind of.
I also think if like push came to shove, and like let's say Hamzat beats Costa, I think they would give Hamzat the title shot before they would give Dricus du Plessis, just because
Mm-hmm.
Hamzat's got the hype. I feel like they'd give it to him before they give it to du Plessis, regardless of like who deserves it. You know what I mean? That's
They're
just kind of
looking
what they
for
do.
any excuse they probably can to give Hamzat Chimaev a title shot in either division. Like
Yeah.
either way,
Right.
I think they
Exactly.
want him fighting for a belt as soon as possible. And if they give him somebody like Costa, you beat him. Okay, I beat somebody in the top 5. Let me
Mm-hmm.
take on the best guy right now. So
Right.
it works for sure.
So imagine that fight though between Costa and Chimaev. Now I've heard and I've been doing a lot of research about it, and I think that this fight for Chimaev is probably going to be his like most difficult one that he's done, besides obviously Burns. But obviously Costa hasn't fought in how long? I don't even remember how long it's been. It's been
The last it was
Costa's last fight.
the Rockhold again. It was
yeah,
on that. It was on the Usman card, but it was not the trilogy card. It was the second fight.
yeah.
It was the April, or no, it was August. I think he fought in
Yeah,
August.
it was in August. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but people forget how good Paulo Costa is. I mean, especially on the feet, striking ability. And I think that if Costa can learn to do something with that wrestling that Chimaev has, which is some of the most dangerous wrestling I've ever seen before. So I mean, just it's a very tough fight for both guys, I believe. And people don't realize how good of a striker Kamzat is. I mean, I was watching like a clip of him like just doing just like crazy fast combos, like, and it was insane. For a guy who's notoriously known for wrestling, like he doesn't get a whole lot of credit for his striking. You go back and watch that Gilbert Burns fight, and like just back to back combos, and the striking is just a really good for Kamzat, and so it's gonna be interesting. I'd like to see Kamzat fight for a title. I mean, who wouldn't? And so I think that if Kamzat wins this fight against Paulo Costa, I think that next fight for him will be championship fight.
Yeah, I think so too. And there's people out there trying to argue that that weight jump for Kamzat's too big. I think he put
He
a
could
picture up
even
on
make weight at
Instagram.
170.
Right, right.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah,
I
it's the
I
think
other way.
saw
it's
him
Yeah.
put a picture up online of him walking around at like 209. I was like,
Jesus
oh,
Christ.
yeah.
Hamzat at 210 is so ridiculous. Oh my God. But
Yeah, he's a big dude.
yeah, and that's the whole main reason why he's not at 170 anymore, because he couldn't make weight. So
Right.
I think the idea of him going to middleweight is great. I think that by the end of this year, we will see Hamza fight for the middleweight championship of the world. I want to say, so if they fight, well, shit, no, if they're fighting in October, then no, maybe we won't. Maybe we
it
won't.
depends. It depends how the fight goes. It
Yeah,
depends.
because
I mean, if he's
Izzy said he wants to fight. He likes fighting. 3 times a year.
mhm.
So I feel like they're gonna get another Izzy fight. Maybe on that card in Abu Dhabi. But I heard that uh Islam and the winner of Oliveira and what's yeah,
Dariush.
Darush, the winner of that is going to get the main event for Abu Dhabi. So there's so much stuff that's all over the place. And Dana's
Mhm.
even said it before. He's like, we don't have our shit together right now, and we're like, because there's these fights that they were going to make, and then they're all falling through. Like, there's, especially with the recent news between John Jones and Stipe. That is something that really confuses me, because you got both guys come out and agree to a fight with each other. They got a date, whatever. Dana said it, and Stipe and Jones said it. So you got to fight. And eventually, as we heard yesterday, that fight fell through. So I don't know if it's something that we're missing, but it's very confusing, because all this stuff, should be happening. Like, they could have had like I've said before, probably the biggest UFC card in history with 3 title fights in July,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that opportunity, fell through. So I don't know. I mean, there could be something that we're missing, um, but yeah, middleweight division. So, and I want to talk about Pereira for a little bit too. So obviously we said that, Jack, you said that Pereira is going to 205. So that was
Mhm.
announced. He announced it like yesterday, I think. So we talked about, so who would he fight first at 205? Now, would you throw him straight into a title shot with Jamal Hill, or do you get him in with one other person before, and then you get him in with like a number one contender fight, and then you get him in to a championship fight with Jamal Hill?
I say you
I,
throw him in straight away.
yeah, I either
I'm
say you
not.
throw
Yeah,
him in straight away. I either say you throw him in straight away, or I think it'd be good to pair him with somebody that's somewhere in the top 10. Not, I wouldn't say
Ankalaev.
maybe top five. I wouldn't say Uncle I'd say more of like
Alexander Rakic wouldn't be a
Yeah.
bad matchup. Like
Well, it
Rockets wouldn't be
sucks.
bad.
Yeah, it sucks that Yuri's going down to
Krylov.
185,
Yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
mind
I
blowing.
forgot
If
about
he's
that.
actually going to end up, going through that.
Yuri.
Cutting that weight.
Yeah, Prohaska, didn't he said he was going to cut down to 185?
There's no chance. Yeah, Blahovic said he would cut
Oh,
down,
Blahovic. I'm
and
sorry. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not. He can't make 185 either. I don't know why he's. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah,
He's
Yeah,
because
huge. I
yeah,
mean,
I
he's a
don't see
big
Jan
guy.
Blachowicz making
No.
not a chance. But I
mm-mm.
was saying I'd either pair him with Nikita Krylov, Rakic is a good one, or
Mhm.
Reyes, maybe a Johnny Walker. Dominic Reyes is a kickboxer, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Is he? So yeah,
John,
that would I think that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
Johnny Walker. Actually, I didn't think about Johnny Walker.
Yeah, but those are just a
So
few off the top of my head. But
yeah,
those be good ones.
The only reason I say throw him in right away is because they have like kind of a new star, like somebody that just brings a lot of eyes with Pereira. Like everybody's fascinated with him because he doesn't talk much and he's scary and he knocks everybody out with just one touch. So I think the UFC, they'll probably think about it. And I think what I want is what I think they'll end up doing, which is I think they're going to put him in the fight with Jamal Hill straight away because if we remember in January, Jamal Hill beat Glover beat him up bad to win the vacant title.
Yep.
And Glover and Pereira are obviously very close. They're training partners. They train together.
With his coach.
Yeah, they're in each other's corners and stuff. So they've got a storyline there, basically, with the avenge Glover after Jamal basically retired him in Brazil. So they could roll with that, or if they did want to throw Pereira into a top 5 fight just to get him a win at 205 to, I guess, kind of back up the title shot. But I think a lot of it depends on Yuri too, because whenever Yuri comes back, he's going to walk right into the title shot because it was his belt before he left. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. 205 is kind of like 185. It's just murky waters. Like
no one and no one talks about it ever. Mm-hmm. Like I can't. Besides, like back in January, when that fight Jamal Hill and Teixeira, like when was, like there has been no like massive 205 stuff going around since then. Nothing. I mean, nothing. It's crazy that Jamal Hill has not gotten a fight yet. I mean, now obviously with Pereira coming up, I agree with you, Hudson. I think that's definitely what they should do is go ahead. I mean, why not? I mean,
Jamal Hill needs a fight anyways.
Yeah, and so it only makes sense that.
And then if Pereira wins, you can really push for the Adesanya trilogy after that
at 205.
Yeah, exactly. If Izzy wants, because if Izzy goes back through and let's just say his next 2 wins are Duplessis and then Hamzat or Costa, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like he's gonna have to eventually. There's gonna be something bigger and better for him, and that's probably gonna end up being moving up. But who knows?
But regardless, that trilogy has to happen. I mean, it has to. I mean, there has been people coming. I mean, literally right after the fight, people were going all over Twitter saying that the trilogy has to happen. Like, no question about it. And I agree. I don't know if y'all noticed this, but when the decision was being called and Izzy's hand was being raised, Alex's coach was in the back doing the 3-1 score, which obviously, yes, it's 3-1, but you got to make that trilogy. I mean, that has the potential to be one of the biggest trilogies ever because it's a very true trilogy. Both guys have knocked each other out clean, cold, and it definitely has. It's one of the best stories right now going on in the UFC. It's one of the best stories going on. So you got to do it again. Now, obviously, it won't be till next year, like maybe late next year. So, but as long as it happens, especially for us fans, I just think it has to.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I think they should give it a minute though because I don't think Izzy should immediately go up to 205 and follow Pereira up there just yet. I think he ought to have one more title defense before he fights Pereira again, and then fight him at 205 for the belt. I think that'd be if Pereira were to get it, which I'm sure at some point he would. But it'd be tough. It'd definitely be hard.
Yeah. So,
and that'd be a while from now.
Yeah.
But it'd still be good to see, and they definitely need to finish that up. You can't just leave it 1-1 in the UFC, even if it was. I don't even know the name of the promotion it was in that they were fighting in.
Glory.
Glory, that's right. And I don't think they should just leave it at that.
And Pereira is still the only guy in Glory history to be a 2-division champion and defend it simultaneously. First and only as of right now. Yeah, middleweight division it's really rocky right now. I would say. I mean, there's a lot going on, but so I'm gonna move on to the co-main. Obviously, this is a big heartbreaker for all of us. Saw Gilbert Burns get the win via decision. Rightfully so, but obviously we were all open for George to pull out a win, especially me. I put money on him. Like as he was like walking out, I was like, it's plus 350 odds. I like it. So so and also this division has got some rocky stuff going on too in the 170 division because you got today, what Leon said is that he's not taking that fight with Colby in July unless he gets a big payday. And we were talking in our group chat, and Hudson, you said that he rightfully should. I definitely agree. He definitely should get his money. I mean, he's beaten the best welterweight of all time twice, So I definitely, and especially with a draw like Colby, like your example, Hudson, it's all the more reason to get paid, But so that's going on with Colby. Obviously, Colby is down to fight whenever, but obviously July 22nd is like the target date. But so now with that going on, that's obviously because Colby's been the number one contender every year, so he's obviously getting that fight. Dana is not going to give it to anybody else. He's clearly come out and said it multiple times. So while those two are fighting, you got other stuff going down the line that people have got to find partners with. So the biggest two right now that have been talked about is Bilal Muhammad and Shavkat Rakhmonov, and it looks like the two of them are going to scrap as well. I don't know. That's just a rumor, just a rumor flying around, but they've said something about Bilal versus Shavkat, Bilal versus Gilbert. There's a lot of different stuff going on, and I just wanted to see what y'all think about what should be done in the welterweight division, regarding Colby and Leon.
Well, I definitely think, Colby deserves the title shot, and he's ultimately going to get it. The weird thing is Bilal's name kind of gets thrown around there sometimes. Like he got paired with Shavkat, he got paired with Usman, he got paired with uh not Shavkat, Kamzat and Burns. And honestly, I think the way it should be done is to give Colby the immediate title shot against Leon in London. Once that fight's over, whoever wins that, whoever becomes champion should fight Gilbert Burns, but only if Kamzat stays at welterweight. I mean, stays at um,
Middleweight,
middleweight.
and he will,
If Kamzat decides to stay and run for the title after that fight, and Kamzat's like, look, I want the winner of um, Colby and Leon. I think they'd give it to Kamzat. Just like they would give it to Kamzat if it was for the middleweight championship. I don't know. I think, in all honesty, it's sad, but it's the sad truth. And I'm not a huge Bilal guy by any means, but I mean, I think he's just going to get shunned until he absolutely has to have it. You know what I mean? I think they're going to kind of push him to the side along with Gilbert Burns for either Colby or Kamzat or Shavkat or whoever. Really, I mean, I think they'll be behind all of them, which is kind of not right to do per se, but it is a business. It's what makes money. I mean, that's kind of how it rolls. It's not fair by any means, but that's just the business of it. And
I
that's
think,
that's my fault.
yeah, I agree with you. I think that I think immediately Colby and Leon, that's the fight to make 100%. You got to give Colby his chance because you can't. I know there are losses, but when you fight prime Kamaru Usman twice, it's not going to be easy to get a win against him. It's virtually impossible. So I think Colby does deserve his chance against Leon. It's going to be a big fight, and I understand why Leon wants his payday, but if he wants to negotiate new money with himself, him and Colby need to put on a big fight in O2, and it needs to be a good fight, and he needs to try and negotiate new money for himself that way. Because,
right.
I mean, we see it all the time with Conor. Like this was what Conor was so good at. Went from making 60,000 his first fight to after he won against Eddie Alvarez, he was talking about ownership, like a percentage of the company. So it's one of those things where you got to fight your way into that position, I think. And I think Leon and Colby is a huge fight. It kind of settles whether or not Colby's going to hang around or not. If Colby doesn't win this fight, then they're going to be pushing for Shavkat, Bilal, those guys coming up. So
Right.
They got a lot of interesting fights. I definitely think Burns secured himself at least like the backup slot for the next title fight. Like when they make Leon and Colby, like they probably should. Gilbert Burns probably deserves to weigh in as the backup for that, and then he might get the winner. I guess it depends. Like you said,
He
Bilal and
should.
Shavkat. Yeah, I mean he's beaten pretty
But
much
then you've got
everybody.
Rachmanov, dude, who's 16-0, man, and he's an absolute, like, he's a killer. And you got Bilal, who is, he's well deserved of his title shot. I'd say, but there's just so many guys, and people are, and there's one guy that people are still forgetting about, who's still good, but people are not saying a whole lot about Kamaru Usman. Now I don't know what's going to happen with him. I don't know if he's going to retire. He hasn't said anything. He didn't say anything about retirement after that trilogy fight, but I don't know. It's interesting because
I actually heard somewhere, I don't know if it was Ali Abdiz who said it or on Twitter, or somebody that was quoting him on Twitter said that he was going to give it one more run at welterweight to try and like this was along a thread. So like this could be, could just completely false. But I mean, it sounded like it made sense to me. Was that Usman was going to try to get one more shot at the title, hoping that Colby wins and then work his way up to the title appearance, whether it having to beat out Burns or Bilal. And I'm sure if push came to shove with that, they'd give it to Usman over Bilal and Gilbert Burns anyway. It sucks to say, but it's the truth. I mean, and they said that he wanted to have one more shot at the title if he were to get there, fight Colby for the belt, win the belt, and then defend it against Conor McGregor, and kind of push the whole narrative of Colby versus Conor off to the side and replace it with Islam, which I personally don't want. But I mean, I don't know.
Colby versus Conor that's
almost
the way
kind of
it
makes
has to be.
It's gotta
That's the
happen.
prophecy, and it's just gotta happen. It's gotta happen.
It just makes me laugh. Even thinking that that's an idea just makes me laugh.
It's so ridiculous, but yet it's so awesome that they even just fathom just that could possibly happen. I mean, I know I would watch it. I mean, obviously I would. But I mean, but yeah, a lot of welterweight division. And so another thing that I had written down here is that, so obviously George Masvidal's loss after the Burns loss, it makes it 4 straight. So it would be hard. Obviously, he's a very big draw, so that's why. But he never actually clearly said it, in the the traditional way of going out. Like, he didn't put the gloves on the ground, or So Ariel was kind of saying something about that maybe he's not done and that he could come back again. But if he does fight again, I think that he will box. I think he'll be he'll box on his own promotion. And I've heard crazy rumors about him and Nate boxing, but obviously Nate's already got a partner in August. We'll get into that later. But yeah, and so what I had here is that I think that we should see a BMF fight again
in the ring.
Yeah. You think in the boxing ring?
That'd be awesome.
You think in the boxing ring?
It depends on how the Jake and Nate fight goes. I'm worried about, I don't know, Nate. The more I think about it, the more I'm nervous about Nate.
Yeah,
he might be bleeding like 15 seconds in the fight.
Yeah, you could blow on this part of Nate Diaz's head, and he's leaking.
It's ridiculous.
But yeah,
man.
Connor, I think you're exactly right. I think they ought to do either one more BMF belt, with Jorge and whoever, and maybe if not, do it within the UFC, which I'm sure they'd be open to doing. They ought to do it.
Well, if George is not going to fight in the
BKFC.
UFC anymore, then just vacate it and do like a vacation. Then do like a vacated BMF fight. If George is not going to fight in the UFC,
no,
just give it up, because I mean, you've lost 4 straight. You're obviously not the BMF anymore, So I mean, you got to have somebody else go at it. And I don't even want to talk about who you could throw in there, because Kevin Holland said he wants a shot at it. There's been some crazy guys who have been talking about it, but I definitely think that another BMF fight needs to happen. I don't really care when. I just at some point that should happen because and there's even still speculations about that fight between he and Nate. Obviously, Nate was, oozing blood, and that's why it stopped.
Hmm.
But Nate was obviously fine. But there's things that fight could have kept going on. So I mean, I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I kind of hope that they don't do another BMF fight, although it's a kind of a two-sided thing because for one, like it's so much fun. Like it is fun doing that, but at the same time, like when somebody says BMF, the only person I could think of is Jorge,
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's like I almost feel like it's kind of doing them wrong to give it to
Mm-hmm.
somebody else or like to leave it up to grabs for somebody else, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the UFC's. It's whatever they want to do with it.
Yeah, the UFC is very how do you say it? Mickey Mouse world, Mickey Mouse rules. So like
Mm.
if it's what they want to do,
Anything
it's what they're
goes.
gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean the thing is, like, I really give it less than 6 months before Jorge Masvidal is doing BKFC. That's just that's what to me what he was born to do. I mean, he was
I
backyard
didn't even
boxing
think
his
about
whole
that.
life.
Yeah, he
I
Yeah.
think
could
I think
honestly.
that
I could see him doing that.
I think that he and Nate need to do the BMF uh, rerun in BKFC. I
You
really
think?
do. I think
Do
that'd
you think
be.
the UFC would even like allow that?
I think
I
they'd
mean,
let Jorge go if he asked.
I don't think they would
Yeah.
not allow it. I think there would be some restrictions as to how they would have it set up. I don't think people would call. I don't think they would call it the BMF belt, but everybody would be like, "Oh, they're redoing the BMF belt, but in BKFC." I think it'd be like that. I think it'd be kind of one of those unannounced, made up titles. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody kind of collectively understands what's going
Yeah,
on.
everybody knows, but
Yeah.
it's not like out there for you to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's not being promoted as such.
Yeah, but
Exactly.
even if Masvidal might be done, I mean, he was like such a captivating guy to watch, man. I mean, um, obviously, what really sparked his career and really sparked his attention as a fighter was the Ben Askren knockout, and like
Mm.
ever since then, it's just been like, I mean, he did 3 fights with Kamaru Usman, which is crazy, and did fought Colby. He's done some real heavy lifting in that weight division for sure. But it's gonna be sad to see him leave the UFC if that's what he's gonna end up doing. You never know because people have often said, I'm gonna retire, and they ultimately come back. I mean, but as far as he goes towards the end of his career, I could see him. I genuinely see him boxing. That's what I see. Um, I mean, you can get him with anybody now because a lot of these guys are moving towards boxing. And I do want to get into boxing later on because there's a lot of stuff I have written down for it. But um, so we got about 2 minutes until we're cut off. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna go and take a short break, and we'll be right back, guys. I'm just gonna go ahead and start it. So kind of to step away from the welterweight division and move into something else that hasn't really been getting a whole lot of buzz is the lightweight division. I mean,
Oh yeah.
obviously there's that fight. The winner one contender fight is next. I want to May 6th, obviously the co-main event, which isn't it strange seeing isn't it crazy seeing Oliveira in a co-main event?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's weird, but I also couldn't imagine Henry Cejudo being a co-main
Oh
either.
yeah, he's
So it's just
yeah. But so Islam has not fought since Volk in that pretty conflicting fight, obviously. Um,
mhm.
but so with the lightweight division, it's interesting because you got Gaethje who is on his way out and he said he wants to go for the belt one more time, before he retires. And I think you should put Gaethje and Poirier together again. I think you do that that second fight between those two. That would be really fun, especially now that because it's been so long since they've seen each other. So I mean, it would be really interesting to see them fight again, especially how much they've both evolved. Poirier, especially, that whole loss to Connor, like that first round KO, kind of really changed stuff for him.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, you got to put Gaethje at it again with that remarkable win over Fitzayev. But Hudson, I wanted to ask what you thought on the lightweight division and regarding Islam because it's going to be really, really fucking hard to beat this guy. I mean, it's going to be really hard.
Yeah, so
So,
he yeah, like you said, it's almost impossible to find a winning game plan against him. You see a lot of guys who try things. It was similar to Habib,
mhm.
where it was like when Habib fought Connor just wanted to stand up. Connor just wanted to get that KO quick, get things over with round one. And Habib took him down, got him tired, ultimately found the neck crank. Poirier fight. Poirier's trying to chop him up with the boxing. Same thing. Habib just takes him down at will, finds that submission eventually. And then the Gaethje fight with Habib. Gaethje's chopping those legs, doing everything he can to give Habib a different look. And it doesn't really matter because the style is just so much more dominant than everybody else. I think Poirier, like you said, Poirier Gaethje too, that's, I think, pretty
Yeah, that'd be
clearly
fun.
the fight that they need to make.
Yeah.
If they're looking for a number one contender, because you think about it too, both of those guys have fought for the belt already.
And Poirier's
Um,
beaten
again,
many champions.
yeah,
Made former
Poirier's
world
resume is
champions. It's
crazy.
it's
Yeah, Poirier's got
arguably
a
one of the best. When you look at
yeah,
the guys that
if
he's
not
beaten,
maybe, yeah,
I mean that 5 round
yeah.
Holloway fight was
Hmm.
awesome. So
Yeah, and he his I mean his last 10 fights have been against present or former champions. I mean you just the guy's he fights everybody. He does exactly what he's got to do.
yeah.
And the thing with Poirier and Gaethje too is that they're both coming off a win. Um, and so even if the fight between those two, even if they didn't want to make it happen and they were still looking at who's going to fight Islam, Poirier and Gaethje are going to come up. They're both coming off a win, so their names both go into that hat. It makes perfect sense for them to fight to see. But I also think obviously Oliveira and Dariush is happening first.
Mm-hmm.
So the winner of that fight, 100%, I think you
We'll
got to
get
write them in for
Islam.
the fight against
Yeah.
Islam.
Yeah.
And then that's when I think while Islam fights the winner of Oliveira Dariush, that's when you try and set up Poirier Gaethje too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe throw that on a co-main event somewhere.
Yeah.
Just try and figure something out to do to get a clear-cut number one dude for Islam.
Yeah. So regardless, either not Chandler, either Poirier or Gaethje is going to end up fighting Islam. Probably, they said October, or that's when Islam will fight the winner of Oliveira and Dariush. That will be.
Mm-hmm.
They said October in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
With the possible co-main event being not Shavkat, Khamzat and Paulo Costa.
Yeah.
Which my opinion should be 5 rounds.
Yeah, for sure.
And Khamzat, he can't get these 5 rounds. I mean, obviously he's not. He can't. You can't do a main event, over that. So, but like he's a 5 round type of guy. We've never seen him go 5 rounds, which is nuts with a guy who's got incredible stamina. So I think at 3 round fight, I think they should make that. That could be like a Nate Connor situation. Like that, would love to see that as a main event because I think Khamzat deserves to be a main event guy, especially all the buzz he's making recently. But as far and that's it. As far as lightweight goes, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on there either. I mean, Islam is just continuing dominance. It's like I said earlier, obviously that Volk fight was, very, very, very rocky.
Razor close.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I went,
close.
yeah, and I rewatched it like once or twice since then, and it honestly can go both ways in that fight, but just that whole 5th round was the real, I think could be the real potential icing on the cake for Volk, and I think he won that last round. So, and but yeah, it's interesting. So I don't know. The lightweight division, it's been pretty quiet ever since that Volk fight. But I think they should run it back again too. I think Volk and Islam should run it back.
They definitely need to run it
Yeah,
back.
absolutely.
I think they both probably need to defend another time or two each, and then really solidify the second fight. Because if Volkanovski, because we know he's going to fight Yair Rodriguez, which is going to be a great fight. But assuming Volkanovski wins that fight and then Islam beats Oliveira or Dariush, which is no guarantee, because those two guys are probably the two best guys that you can put against Islam to give him a chance to lose. So it just kind of depends on how what they do in each of their own weight classes determines whether or not they'll get back to that fight again or not.
But yeah, but I want to see Islam fight again. I mean, just such a freak athlete, man. One of the potential to be. I mean, obviously he's on his way to like getting Khabib's type status, and he's obviously really gives off that kind of vibe. Just the Dagestan guys, and insanely trained. Well, sharp-minded. It's very disciplined. And but yeah, I'd like to see how they're gonna move forward with that after May 6th, after that fight. So International Fight Week. There's been a lot of buzz around this card, a lot of stuff that was rumored to happen, and obviously we talked about earlier the whole Jones-Stipe thing not happening on that fight, which, like I said earlier, it's upsetting, and it's almost like to the point where it's a little agitating because they talk so much. They talked so much about that card on that date, and to see it just fall through like that,
it's disappointing.
Yeah, because apparently Jones, went radio silent. He said, let me know when the fight's finished, and it never went through. And I like I said, it's hard kind of saying that after both sides, agreed to fight each other. They had the date set. So, I mean,
and this has to be some kind of an issue from Stipe's end.
I
can't imagine.
Yeah. Originally, that's what it was sounding like. But now, that John hasn't said, a whole lot about the fight. It's almost seemed like it could be, but, that's not like John to just leave a fight on the table like that, especially not much longer ago after, because he likes to fight a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's gonna be hard waiting until whenever they make that fight. I mean, obviously that should be what should happen. But and I think after Jones beats Stipe, I think he's just about to just go through and clear out the heavyweight division as well, because I mean, after he beats Stipe, he's going to have to start fighting a lot of these younger guys. I mean, because a lot of these, unless if, Brock Lesnar decides to come back to the UFC and then they make that fight between him and John Jones, which obviously I'd like to see. He called him out, years ago. John Jones did when he was at light heavyweight, and, and Brock Lesnar was not, weighing 205 pounds. But so with International Fight Week, it's looking like it's going to be Volk versus Yair for main event, and co-main event is Moreno and what was the other guy's name?
Pantoja.
Yeah.
Yes, that's going to be another good one.
Yeah. So we're scheduled for 2 title fights, which is awesome. It's and what was and Figueroa, he's also targeted for that card as well. And Hudson, you and I said earlier that it's how ironic it is that they just can't get away from each other,
Yeah, it's impossible. I mean, it's crazy.
I mean, they just fought for their 4th time not too long ago, and now they're gonna be on the same card again, but not fighting each other, which is gonna be interesting to see, like that whole press conference and just kind of see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's funny, because it's like it's interesting too, because it's like I think about this a lot before the press conferences, the red and blue corners where who's going to be sitting by each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so Moreno and Figueiredo will be sitting next to each other in the red corner at the press conference.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, I don't know, man. I think Figgy should I don't know why he said he wanted to move up to 135 and fight Dominic Cruz, and I was like, it's a good fight.
Yeah,
Make
awesome.
that fight happen. And but I don't know. Hopefully Figgy doesn't get a big win and then call him out. But there's no guarantee Moreno is going to win this fight either. Pantoja's really good.
Yeah,
and he's beaten Moreno twice already. So
yeah. Kryptonite, like we talked about, everyone's kind of got their one. But and that's kind of all you've said. I'm gonna go back and pull up the messages that we said about what was gonna be what was else, like, because they have I think one slot left for International Fight Week. So we said it was so Volk versus Jair, Bo Nickel and Gore, which that'll be awesome too. So they got one fight left on that main card slot. So determining how, well, I mean, it's you got to plan it somewhat sooner rather than later, because you want to have that card done before the summer starts. So I don't even. I mean, you could honestly put Bilal and Shavkat on there, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
And it fits, like we've talked about. It fits the International Fight Week thing. You know, they're both from different parts of the world, so it only makes sense. And you go ahead and get Bilal and Shavkat to fight, and the outcome of that can obviously fight for the welterweight championship against Leon.
Yeah, exactly. Because they've got the July 8th, and then the assuming that Leon doesn't do something weird and move this fight to a later date, they had it set for the 22nd. That was the aim date. It was July 22nd. So hypothetically, the winner of Bilal and Shavkat 2 weeks later could go to London and be there cage side, ready to hop in there and call out the champ. So I don't know. They need to. I hope they do it. I hope they do it. I hope they can figure it out.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Because it's the summer cards are always big.
They're always the biggest ones of the year, just about.
They're the most fun ones. And I think that's why you gotta try and get the best fights you possibly can on there, especially if John's not going to be able to make it. And we know Connor and Chandler is going to be down the road. So
that fight's not going to, I hate to say it, but that fight's not going to be for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, because Connor still has said nothing about USADA, and he's not even in the pool yet. So that's already, raising red flags. Some people are saying that fight may not even happen anymore because of all of the crazy, like the whole USADA thing. That's the only thing, and that's the reason why some people think that fight may not even happen anymore.
Right.
And I 100% think that it should, because they match up very well, I think. Chandler's obviously got the wrestling background, but Connor's been working on his wrestling, continuously after that loss to Khabib. Obviously, he's never had to use it because he's fought strikers after that. Cerrone, Poirier twice, Donald. I already said that, but I mean, I think it's going to be his next, tough fight with a wrestler. But yeah, no news on that fight at all. No fighter has said anything about when that's going to happen, and it's, like I said, it's starting to raise a little bit red flags, because I mean, as far as they've got up until 290 with Nunes and Pena, that's how much they've got planned so far, as far as pay-per-views go.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and obviously Connor's not a co-main event, so it won't be on that card. So I mean, and like I said, Connor's not even entered the pool yet.
Right.
And the way Connor is playing his game with USADA is that he is wanting to do it on his own terms.
Mm-hmm.
Like he thinks that he'll do 2 clean tests and then he'll do the fight. But obviously with USADA, that's not how it works.
No, it's not. But if
USADA
they're
is
gonna bend the rules
crazy,
for
man.
anybody,
Yeah.
yeah.
If they do bend the rules for anybody, it should be him
Mhm.
because I mean Dana obviously is gonna be pushing that because I mean biggest pay-per-view draw of all time, Conor McGregor. So obviously that they've got to work something out. You know, Dana said, like I said earlier, Dana said that there's a lot that they are trying to fix because there's a lot of stuff that is just not sounding good right now. Obviously we just came off one of the best cards of the year, in my opinion. So it's gonna and the way they got to continue to build off that, and they have. I mean they do. I mean we got a good one coming up on Saturday. And then after that, the other fight night, Blades and Blahovic.
Pavlovich,
Yeah, Pavlovich,
yeah.
Sergey.
Pavlovich is gonna
Yeah.
be,
And then
yeah.
after that, it goes into May 6th, with Cejudo and Aljo. And I'll go into that. I guess we'll go into that fight. So Cejudo says that he's feeling good. I don't know. He saw his tweet. He's a little bit halfway through his camp right now. And so that fight is, less than, about 3 weeks away. And obviously no one's going to write Cejudo off. I'm not personally. He's one of the best to ever do it.
Mm.
But but you got to think about the age factor, man, and how all that plays into it with a guy like Aljamain Sterling, who's a killer, man. You saw what he did to who was it, TJ Dillashaw, and so I wanted to kind of get your opinion on that fight between him and Cejudo.
Yeah, I think stylistically it's a great matchup
Yeah,
because
it's really good.
you've got Cejudo with this Olympic level wrestling, and then you've got Sterling who also just has outstanding freestyle wrestling on his own. I think where the difference in this fight really comes is the just overall IQ. I think Henry Cejudo is borderline genius when you talk about the guys who have some of the best fight IQs of all time. It's John Jones, Henry Cejudo, Jose Aldo, like just the guys who get in there time after time after time. They know what they got to get in there and do to do it every single time. So I think I think that and the cardio is going to be a big factor too. So I think if Cejudo's cardio is good and he's ready to wrestle and move around for 5 rounds, then
Yeah,
I've probably got Cejudo winning that
yeah,
fight. But
I agree.
regardless, it'll be a good one.
Yeah, and so the winner of that fight, do you think it'll be Sugar Sean finally getting his title shot, or you think it'll be because they said, yeah, I agree. I think it's time for him to get a title shot. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a beast, and I think he's one of the best boxers in the UFC, if not the best. You go back and
Yeah.
watch DC's breakdown of
Mm-hmm.
how he breaks down his boxing and just how incredibly skillful and precise it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think you have to put Sugar Sean in for the winner of those two, and the winner of either one. I mean, him fighting either one would be fun,
Mm-hmm.
especially him fighting Cejudo, because it's
Yeah.
like Cejudo's the old style guy, and then Sugar Sean is this new era of bantamweight, with just tremendous boxing skills.
You're
So
right. Right.
I mean, it's going to be interesting, and I think we're in May 6th. Is that card in Vegas?
New Jersey.
It's in New Jersey. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I think Sugar Sean should go to that fight. I think
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs to be there,
Yeah.
and I definitely think he's paid his dues. He's been in some really good fights. Um, so I think you give Sugar Sean the title opportunity after this card, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe get them two to fight for the title. So they'll fight in May. So maybe October in Abu Dhabi or something like that. There's a lot of places where you could put them. But I do. I agree. I think it's definitely time for us to see Sean fight for the title, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that fight even plays out. You know, with regardless of who it is against, either or would be really fun.
Mhm.
And then if imagine if Sean becomes a champion. I mean, that would be like that'll be obviously I would like to see it because I'm a Sugar Sean guy. So I just wanted to see what kind of what you would think about Sugar Sean fighting for the title after this Cejudo and Aljo fight.
Yeah, I definitely think after this fight, definitely got to get definitely you have to get Sean O'Malley in there. Because the window of opportunity is a little bit smaller with O'Malley than it is some of these other guys in the top five. Because O'Malley, when he beat Jan, you know, a lot of people said, I don't know if he really won the fight, may
Mm-hmm.
have gone the other way, 29-28 Jan. So regardless of what happened, Sean won the fight and they need to get him in there. If they want him to fight for the title, they need to get him in there as soon as possible. So I think the winner of Sterling Cejudo, I think Sean O'Malley fights the winner of them. And then after that, um, obviously we just saw a couple weeks ago Corey Sandhagen beat Cheeto and he called out Marab.
Yeah.
Which that's a clear cut number one contender
Mm-hmm.
fight, for sure. So I think I think they've got a good bantamweight's got some
Bantamweight's
good.
got a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, they've got a lot of options.
I would love to see Sanhagen and Sean
Mhm.
O'Malley.
And
I
Rob
think
Font too.
yeah,
Rob
Rob
Font just
Font.
had a big
Yeah.
win, so he's definitely in the mix
Mm-hmm.
somewhere too.
Mm-hmm. Especially the way he won, man, with a knockout after a year of being off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah,
And especially with a guy like Adrian Yanez, who was 10 fight win streak, I think is what it was. And
yeah.
just
He's
starched him in the
yeah.
third round, I think.
Oh yeah.
It was third round.
It
And I
was. I
had
think
him.
it was the first.
Yeah, it was
I
because
think it was the first.
on verdict, I had Rob Font by KO in second round, and he knocked him out in the first.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it was great to see Rob Font get a win like that, especially like I said
Yeah.
after the time off and with a guy like Yanez who is just a killer,
Mm-hmm.
incredible boxing skills, and um, but yeah, that card was really fun. So the last kind of moving on from MMA, I think if you have anything else you wanted to bring up, speak now. So I'm gonna transition over to boxing, because I've for some reason I've been doing a lot of boxing like rewatches lately and
Mm-hmm.
searches. And so for people so what was recently announced was yesterday, Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul, August 5th in Dallas, Texas, DAZN pay-per-view, which I wish it was Showtime because Showtime's the king of boxing recently, but it's
Yeah. The
DAZN. But
zone's all right.
yeah, yeah. And so what I was thinking about Jake Paul, and obviously I talk about him a lot on here, but about Jake Paul and Nate is that a lot of people thought that Jake Paul, because I mean, after he lost to Tommy Fury, nothing, not a
Mm-hmm.
word. And I personally thought that he wasn't going to box again just because of how he lost and the hype train was over. One thing I'll say about Jake Paul is that he's a good boxer. I mean, he's got power, but I've said this so many times and I'll say it again. It's all just about the resume.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're a boxer fighting MMA people, it doesn't look very good. So I still like to think that Jake Paul is not taking his boxing career as seriously as everybody thinks he is. Because let's be honest, if he was taking it as seriously as he says he is, he would be fighting real guys, and he would be fighting, for he's knocked out everybody he's fought, whatever you want to say. But you would have thought that if he was taking it as seriously that he would have fought a couple times, because boxers fight a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Canelo fights, once or twice a year. So and if he says he wants to fight Canelo, that would just be a slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think this is how Jake's career is going to go. I think we're just going to see him fight these old MMA guys or old boxers. I think that's, and I could be wrong. But I think that's how his career is going to go. And recently came out and said that altercation between him and Floyd at that Heat game was all staged.
Oh, right.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it was all staged. He said that Jake said something about it. Chael was talking about it. I watch way too much of him, so you can't turn him off, man. So I mean,
No.
he's the greatest of all time. So
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
but so Jake and Nate, we were talking about it earlier, and we said that we're big Nate Diaz fans, so we're excited that we're going to see Nate fight again, but he's fighting Jake Paul in a boxing match.
Right.
Now, today I was watching Nate Diaz versus Donald Cerrone.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time of Donald's career, he was one of the best in the division. I mean, he was, won 4 fights in 10 months. And then Nate, who's still young and like just coming off the Ultimate Fighter, I think. Regardless,
Just a couple years removed.
Yeah. And regardless, I think that's probably one of the best boxing performances by Nate Diaz in that fight. I don't know if you rewatched,
Oh, yeah.
if you've seen that fight,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that's one of the best performances as a boxer from Nate Diaz in a fight. Because he didn't, obviously he did boxing with Conor, but it wasn't, it was great. But I think that fight between him and Cowboy. Nate and Cowboy was one of the best boxing performances. So I just kind of wanted to see what you thought about the whole Jake versus Nate thing. And, obviously Jake Paul is going to, we wanted to see Jake Paul fight again, but the Nate Diaz thing just kind of sprung out of nowhere because we thought it was going to be Logan versus Nate or like something like that. But this just kind of just sprung on us. I mean, everybody in the MMA boxing community was completely surprised by this announcement because I had people text me and call me and say, like, is this for real? Like, is this actually going to happen? And I was like, yeah, believe it or not, it's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see what you thought on this on this fight.
Yeah, it's I mean, props to Nate. Nate deserves to get his bag. He deserves to get his payday. He deserves to make his money because that dude, he's taken some beatings, man. Like Nate is both of the Diaz brothers at that are both just willing to step in there and take their beating like they need to.
Mm-hmm. And they're very good at it though.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess ultimately what it comes down to is I think Jake younger, he's faster, and I'm not really sure how serious Nate will take it. So if I had to make a pick, I'd probably pick Jake, but I would not be surprised to see Nate just torch him and piece him up. I really wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me, but right now I'm probably just leaning a little bit more towards the speed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. The experience too with Nate is
that's what I said. I think
the experience and the fact that he cannot, his lights don't go out. You can't put him out.
You cannot put him out. So and the one thing that I hate about these Jake Paul fights, man, is that they are 8-round fights.
Yeah.
And if Jake is a serious boxer like he says he is, these fights would be 10, 12 rounds.
Yeah.
And Nate can go 12 rounds easily.
Easy. Nate can go 20 rounds easy.
But could Jake go 12 rounds is the thing. I think Jake could. You don't think so?
Maybe not 12. If it was like 10
rounds,
I think
yes.
10,
he's done 10 rounds before, I'm pretty sure.
Who did he do 10s against? Did he do
Was Silva 8 rounds? Silva was 8 rounds. I think
Silva was 8s and Fury was 8s. Did he do 10s against Woodley the second time?
That was Showtime. So
they may have done 10s in the second Woodley fight. I can't, or they may have done them in the first fight too. I can't even remember. He's probably fought a 10 round somewhere in there.
Yeah, he's probably sparred like 10 rounds, I would say, but.
And he doesn't even look gassed by the end of 8 rounds either, so I'm sure he can probably get 10.
And Dallas too is an interesting venue. I think they're doing AT&T Stadium.
Oh wow!
Which that holds 90,000 people, and so I don't know. I'm not sure how much. Obviously, it's going to sell. Yeah, everybody knows who Nate Diaz is, and everybody knows who Jake Paul is. So I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to see how this fight is actually going to happen.
Yeah,
I mean, because all of us, I mean, us including, thought that Nate was done. I mean, he's a free agent from the UFC, and there were thoughts of Jake going into PFL, and that's obviously not going to happen. The whole Jake and PFL thing.
I think this fight is. I think that's why
Could
they're
be
doing
the
this.
so if Nate wins, then they go into or shit. If Jake wins, then Nate's like, "Yo, let's run it back, but let's do it my game in PFL," because both have been obviously Jake was signed by PFL and they were
Right.
supposed to do a fight with on PFL, and I heard rumors about Ngannou doing PFL, but the Ngannou thing is just completely it's so messed up. And not to the point that, it's just that a lot of these major world champions, heavyweight champions in boxing do not have fighters, do not have
Mm,
dance partners. I
no.
mean, Fury, the USEC fight
Mm-mm.
is I don't think that's happening anymore.
Not for now, at
But
least.
Fury is still in training camp because he's been dark for about a month or a little less than a month. He's been doing training camp, so I don't know who he's training for, whether they have a fight already. I would like to see Anthony Joshua, but
Yeah.
I think Fury puts him on his back early in that fight because Fury he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Wilder is not fought. They were trying to get Wilder and AJ to fight, which that would have been fun. But it's so crazy seeing all these heavyweight champions not have jobs, especially Ngannou, who is
Yeah.
we all know how his history in the UFC. He was a dominant heavyweight champion, and everybody knows that he turned down his offer, which I think he made a big mistake doing that. I think he
I
made a
agree.
ginormous mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But the move to boxing is not a bad idea, I say, because you can get Ngannou to fight these heavyweight titans like Tyson Fury, like Deontay Wilder, like AJ. I mean, you can get him to fight these fights, but nothing has been said or rumored or nothing. But the one thing that I'm interested that I keep going back to is that what happened to Fury and Ngannou?
Yeah, Fury and Ganu. I don't know. I mean,
Because they both agreed on it. I mean, they
yeah,
brought them, I mean, in Wembley Stadium in front of 90,000 people. Ngannou and Tyson were in the ring and both agreed on just the baddest man alive fight, boxing, 4-ounce gloves, which is insane, by the way. I mean,
yeah, that's nuts.
Tyson Fury wearing 4-ounce gloves is that's might as well just not wear any at all.
Right.
But just the thing about all these heavyweight champions and thing with Ngannou is that I just the whole move to boxing because he's reached out to all these other promotions like BKFC who said that he was asking for a ridiculous amount of money and PFL no money there. I mean, he wants to get paid as he should. And right now, the best way for him to get paid is by doing boxing because boxing
Mm.
loves to pay. And a fight between him and one of these former or current heavyweight champions is what should happen. And it's boxing is in such a weird place right now when you really think about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Nobody will fight each other.
yeah, exactly. Nobody fights anybody. I mean, Canelo is still carrying boxing because he's the one who's doing it the most, and he fights this year. I know, like soon, within the next couple months, he's fighting. Um, yeah,
Gervonta Davis.
and Ryan Garcia, and so boxing's in a weird place. It's always has been, ever since the Floyd era of boxing just kind of moved on. But obviously Tyson Fury, because when you think about boxing, you think about the heavyweight division because that's the one that everybody
It's the premier
watches. Yeah,
division.
exactly. So we haven't seen a big heavyweight fight. Obviously Tyson Fury fights all the time, but he's fighting these guys that just toying with, Dillian
Yeah.
White and
Yeah.
Usyk was supposed to happen, but we haven't heard anything about it. And that was they're supposed to fight in May or something like that, but it still hasn't happened. And so I don't know. It's interesting to see how the sport of boxing is going to play out, especially with this Garcia and Tank fight coming up at the end of the month. Shit, that's next weekend.
Yeah.
So that fight's going to be really fun. And I think that fight will go either way. Yeah, honestly, I think just because I'm a big fan of both guys, I really am.
Mm-hmm.
I love Tank, and obviously I've been following Garcia since he kind of broke onto the scene of boxing. And obviously everybody knows Gervonta Davis. He was Floyd's prodigy, at the big kind of takeoff of his career.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. It's interesting to see how boxing's going to play out because this fight between Gervonta Davis and Garcia is like the first like big super fight that we are having since I guess the trilogy fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury.
Yeah, for sure.
So boxing in a strange place, and I'm on the lookout for something big to happen with boxing soon because I miss good prime boxing. I've been watching a lot of Tyson stuff, like not Tyson Fury, Mike Tyson. And so I don't know. And if you want to keep talking boxing, I'll hop off this real quick and we'll get back into it. So let me I'm gonna stop this recording and I'll hop right back. All right. So we were on the topic of we'll just talk about boxing for a little bit. So one thing that I kind of wanted to get your take on that I thought was interesting that I literally just thought of about boxing is that where do you think boxing stands right now for its lineage of its rest of its going on? Like, obviously we know boxing for being like one of the key like sports of the 90s, like during the whole Mike Tyson reign.
Right.
But like, I kind of wanted to get your take on how boxing is doing right now and how you think it'll continue to go throughout, years to go.
Yeah, I think like just the whole state of combat sports is in like a transition phase right now, especially because you see MMA is kind of taken over. More people are drawn towards this MMA crowd now. More people want to see the MMA fights now. And so I think with boxing, I think you're always going to have your big guys there. I think Fury, Wilder, Tank, Garcia, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, and those guys like Terrence Crawford, like those are the cream of the crop guys that I think will always keep it at a high level and keep fans interested. But I don't know, man. Everybody wants to watch UFC now.
Yeah. And it's so crazy to even see how well UFC has evolved over the years. Like from a sport that I guess when UFC first started, I mean, you go back and watch those Royce Gracie and Ken Shamrock fights. I mean, like,
yeah,
no rules, pretty much, just straight up brawl.
Yeah,
and people were like, dude, like, how is this like allowed to do? So it's really cool to see how UFC has kind of transformed into, Dana's even said it himself, like one of the biggest sports on earth, which I wholeheartedly agree with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think and obviously you got, NBA playoffs are coming up, so that's going to be a big thing everyone's going to be watching, but still the UFC just continues to, I mean, you saw what he said in Miami, it was at the gate, it was like 11 million, I think, like one of the big, like top 5. I think it was right at 6th for highest gates they've had in UFC history. So, especially when you got guys like Adesanya, who is bringing in money, Pereira, who's going to start to bring in a whole lot of money now that we've seen what he can do. But back to boxing, man, it's just that I love boxing is kind of what got me into combat sports at first was boxing. And I didn't start. I mean, obviously, I started watching UFC around 2014 when Conor got in the UFC was when I was in it. His first fight against Marcus Brimage. I was watching it. I just then that kind of is when I was stepping into UFC, but I really didn't get like heavily involved in it as we are now. Within the last couple of
Right.
years or so. So, but with boxing, is that boxing has always been there for us, especially. UFC is 30 years. It's on a 30-year anniversary, but it's it's just interesting to see how boxing has kind of made it's not. I don't want to say it's on its downfall because I've said that what Jake Paul has done is I think is very good for boxing. I think it's been regardless of what people say about him, everybody knows my opinion on him, but regardless of what he is, this is just a guy like me who cares a lot about boxing. Is that it's good to see him elevate boxing and getting a lot of other people involved in it. Now, one thing
Right.
that isn't good for boxing, in my opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't like the whole YouTube boxing thing. Like, it's just like you got guys who don't know how to fight. They're doing it because they want to make money, and people are obviously going to watch it because they're just like, why in the hell are these two dudes even fighting in the first place?
Right.
So, like, I get to the point of where people are saying that, boxing has changed, and it has, and no argument there at all. But, the reign of heavyweights is still there. You still got Tyson Fury, who's arguably one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. I think I would put him right at 3 behind Ali and Tyson.
Yeah.
But I think that he's one of the best fighters to ever live. He's one of the, he's a guy that really motivates me, and that sort
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
So, and it's just sad, man, to see kind of how boxing has transitioned to what it is now. But I kind of wanted to see what you thought about, what you would like to see with going forward with, with boxing. And because Fury, I mean, he's still not in his prime, obviously, but I mean, he's 34 years old, so he's not old.
Right.
And Floyd was boxing Conor at 40.
Yeah.
And he looked fresh in that fight. Floyd looked really well, and he's 34, but he's also a heavyweight who weighs, 270 pounds when he fights.
Right.
So I just kind of to see what you thought about what if you were, if you were a boxing promoter, what would you kind of do to, I guess, because obviously you can't get boxing to where it was, 30 years ago. You can't get to this. Mike Tyson's not an active fighter anymore. So what would you kind of do, I guess, if you were, Eddie Hearn or one of these big promoters who were just kind of trying to figure out what to do with boxing?
Yeah, it's weird because you look at the state of boxing right now, and the biggest issue with boxing is that there is not one sanctioning body. There's multiple different organizations, multiple different sanctioning bodies, and so it's hard for these people like Eddie Hearn, like these other promoters. They have a hard time coming to agreements, to terms, because they obviously believe that their fighter represents a greater portion of the eyeballs, of the butts in the seats, that their fighter is the one doing it. And so boxing is always, and until they somehow unify these organizations and these promoters and get them all under one roof together and get these guys fighting each other because they have to, that's the only time that like the quality of boxing will even get remotely close to the way it was in the 90s, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I think that we'll get something with Fury, I think soon. I hope so. I think, like I said, he needs to fight Joshua at some point. Because that fight was supposed to happen in December. It obviously fell through. And what I noticed is that boxing fights fall through so often.
Yeah.
Like way more often than UFC fights. Because the only UFC fight that was just sadly, truly never meant to happen was Khabib and Tony.
Right.
But like with that, that's two guys that they've been trying to fight all the like their whole career, and that sucks that it never happened.
Mm-hmm.
But with boxing, you see a lot of fights falling through a lot quicker, a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said with Usyk and Fury, nothing.
Yeah.
They were supposed to fight in May, and there's nothing on that. So I don't know. And obviously, you can't do a Fury Wilder fight anymore because they've done 3 times. Fury, knocked him out twice. So I mean, basically they threw in the towel the second fight, which the second and third fight between those two guys is some of the best boxing matches I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah. For
Because
sure.
you got two guys who are the best fighters in the world, the best pound for pound, boxers in the world. And they were fighting at the time where they should. It's arguably one of the best boxing rivalries ever, just on the amount of attention it drew towards the sport of boxing at that time.
Right.
And it was like at that time where those two were the only boxers in the heavyweight division, at least, because it was only the two of them that were fighting. And so with boxing, especially with those two, is that that I said that third. I think I rewatched the third fight like last week, and it's incredibly the back and forth between those two.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to see something happen with boxing pretty soon, especially with Deontay Wilder or Fury. I hope they get fighters. I hope Ngannou figures something out. Dana says that he's not going to go back to the UFC ever. That's been said, but obviously I think that they're going to have to figure something out with Francis sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what was going through Ngannou's mind, man, when he was processing that, because I think a fight between him and Jones, I said it before, is one of the biggest heavyweight fights in UFC history, I think, between those two.
It's probably the biggest heavyweight fight in history.
Ngannou, before Jones came in, he was probably one of the best heavyweight. He wiped through everybody. But now you got Jones, who is still yet to be untouched. So, I mean, I don't know. I really want to see Ngannou fight really, really badly. And I really don't know nothing about him at all, besides the fact that he's got no fights to make. He's got nothing going on with boxing. I don't know but like I said, I hope he fights again, because he's such a special talent. And, the story of, how he started fighting and all that is truly inspiring. And so it's something that I hope to see soon.
Yeah, for sure.
But on the note of boxing, so next weekend is Ryan Garcia versus Tank. And Garcia went on Hot Boxing, Mike Tyson's podcast today, or it was recorded like a little over a month ago, but he went on it today. But I kind of wanted to get your take on that fight and see kind of what you thought about it, because these two guys should have fought a long time ago, believe it or not. This fight should have happened a while ago, with the whole back and forth thing on FaceTime with the two of them. Like, it should have happened. But now it's finally happening. And Garcia, I don't know. I need to go back and watch a lot of Davis fights, because there's a few of them that I've seen. Obviously, the DDG fights, I've seen those. So, I mean, but I just kind of wanted to see what you thought about the Garcia versus Tank fight next week.
Yeah, it's a huge fight. Obviously, it kind of goes without saying. It's huge. I think as far as the actual fight itself, I like Tank in the fight, but I only picked Tank because I've seen him go. Seen him go the full length with guys that are probably up there just as close in skill level with Ryan Garcia, if not better in certain areas. So I'm not saying that I think Tank's going to clean him up and make it look easy. I think Garcia's fast. He's
fast.
He's quick. He's quick.
And it is insane, dude. His quickness is unreal.
It's just it's his quickness, his timing, his reaction speed is really, really good. So it's all about if he can find the counter shot from when Tank throws big, It's can he get out of the way and find the counter shot?
Mm-hmm.
So
Do you
if
think
Tank,
like size and all that stuff going to come into play? Because I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that Tank is not a big guy. He's very short, but he's
Mhm,
also very fast.
right?
And I want to say that Garcia has got height on him. I want to say that. I don't know off the top of my head,
He
but he
does.
definitely does. So
Yeah,
reach maybe also is going to play a
he
factor in there.
does.
And we've seen Garcia throw down before, but we've also seen him get put down before.
Hmm.
But we've also never seen Tank get knocked down before either.
Yeah, so that was what I was gonna say is that it's just weird because like you said, we've seen Garcia get clipped clean, hit the floor, and he had a chance not to get up. He did. He kept going and ended up winning the fight. So we know that he can take a shot and that he can recover. The thing with Tank is that if Tank gets caught in this fight, we don't know how he fights after that. We're not really sure how he handles himself, how he deals with the kind of the pressure of it, the moment, if his composure is good or bad. So it just kind of depends. Um, but yeah, I think Tank is just the power is always the great equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in really any combat sport, it'll always be the great equalizer if you can put another guy out with one punch.
Which both
So
of them can. We've
right, and
in
it's
an
just different
instant.
styles.
Yeah, way different.
Hmm. It's just different styles, and although I think Gervonta is the better boxer, I think the matchup favors Ryan
Garcia,
because Gervonta gets people out
technical.
of there with the big shots, the big uppercut, the hooks,
Yeah.
the
And
just
Garcia is very technical.
he's technical and he's quick and he's a counter guy though. So
Yeah.
Garcia is comfortable fighting off of his back foot. Um, and so I think if Garcia can time something up, he can catch him. But if not,
I think somebody's going to go down.
for sure,
I
yeah, I
think
think
somebody's
somebody's
going.
going
I
to hit
think
the
both of them
deck.
have way too much power to have it go all 12 rounds.
Yeah.
So I think somebody's going down. Now, I don't want to give a prediction because I really like both guys. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's just that, and these two, they sound like they really don't like each other. I don't know if this is
Right.
all just for show. Obviously, to build up the fight, you got to have some sort of, you know, shit talking going on. I mean, especially
Mm-hmm.
in boxing, to build that fight up is going to be good.
Yeah.
And the building it up is going to be on them, on the two of them, because they both can. I mean, Garcia can promote a fight. Davis, just his name can promote fights. So it's I think that fight's going to be good. I think it's in Vegas, right? Or I don't even know where it is.
I'm not really sure
It
where
could
they're
be in
having it, to be
LA or
honest.
something like that. I think it might be in Los Angeles, but yeah, so that fight is next Saturday. Yeah, so about a week from now, a little over a week from now.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, this will be like the first like big boxing bout that we've had in a very long time. Like
Oh yeah.
something that is this big and this important for either fighter because they're
Mm-hmm.
both undefeated. Both of their wins are coming majority by knockout. So it's a legacy fight for both guys. And I think if Gervonta loses this fight, it's gonna be like a whoa, like Garcia is the real deal, which
Mm-hmm.
he's been there. Garcia is still, and obviously Garcia hasn't fought in a while either.
Right.
So I feel like that's gonna come to play because Gervonta fights all the time. Like I've said, he fights all the time. So I don't know. It's gonna be cool to see how that fight plays out, and um, especially I don't even know the rest of the card, but it's good boxing, so I'm gonna definitely be interested. I'll be sitting down and watching that fight for sure. So
100%.
while on the topic of boxing and like Nate Diaz and stuff, I wanted to see what you thought about Nick Diaz and if he's ever going to come back and fight because he said that he would like to, and he said he'd like a fight against Chimaev. But I don't
Yeah.
know if Nate, I don't, it's Nick, he likes to talk a lot. So, I don't know if that's like a real deal or if it's just, just for show.
Yeah, even if Nick really was serious about that, I don't
You
think they
can't
give
put him
him.
against Shemaev, man. I mean,
No.
that's uh, Shemaev is just an unreal specimen of a fighter. I mean, and I wish he was fighting more often than he normally is, because he is the
Yeah.
kind of guy who needs to be fighting all the time,
Hmm.
especially with how good he is and how much. And now he's starting to get more attention. And like, after he finally got back on Twitter after the Izzy fight and just was calling out everybody. He called out, well, obviously the Paulo Costa fight is going to happen.
Right.
Um, but and did you see that Paulo Costa tweeted at Dylan Danis to help him with wrestling for the Chimaev fight?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I hope he's joking.
I hope he is too.
He's got to be joking. There's no way.
So here's something that I heard. So, which is what we said we could talk about, actually, the whole merger between WWE and UFC.
Hmm.
So I I genuinely don't know a whole lot about it at all. I haven't done a whole lot of reading on it, but as a guy who followed professional wrestling for like, oh shit, man, I don't follow it as anymore. Like, whenever, like, obviously, like the old guys like Cena, when they fight or like they wrestle, I'm checking in on it. But as a guy who's been following professional wrestling for most of his life, I went to WrestleMania 30, one of the coolest things I've ever been to in my life.
Hmm.
And so I just don't know what they're going to do with the WWE merging with the UFC. I don't know if that means that we're going to see WWE guys in 4-ounce gloves fighting a UFC guy, or if we're going to see, you know, MMA guys becoming performers and going into the UFC. I don't know. I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Yeah, I know nothing about it. Like, I don't know
It
really
seems like
any
it seems
specific.
like nobody does.
There's not really any. All of it's just it's like super vague right now.
Mm,
But if I had to guess, what it's probably like ultimate thing is going to be is they're probably doing it more so for promotional reasons because Dana is
mm,
such a good promoter. Um, so I'd say it's that, and then I think that they'll probably end up taking some guys that, like, if they get cut from the UFC, they'll get offered, basically, if you don't want to fight MMA anymore, do you want to slide into the WWE side? Or,
yeah.
I'm not sure, but I don't think that, like, I don't think there will ever be a day where we'll see UFC and WWE on the same card.
I don't
I
think
don't
that
think
should.
we'll ever.
I don't think that should even that should not happen. I don't
I
think.
don't think that'll ever happen, and I don't think there'll ever be a day where WWE gets more people watching on Saturday night. So
Hmm.
I don't think it's anything super significant, but who knows?
Yeah, because that was a big deal when that news broke. But you and I and other people, including, we still don't know a whole lot of what's going on.
Right.
So
Yeah.
hopefully they clear that up, at some point, because Ariel and Chael, they're kind of like, we don't even know what's going on either. And Ariel's a big
Yeah.
WWE guy, so
Yeah.
um, which one thing I was starting to notice that a lot of these like big UFC like reporters and stuff, that they're also big into WWE. Like Chael likes
Hmm.
it, and I know Ariel's a big fan of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. It's just I was so into it. Like, obviously, as every kid used to be back in the day. Like, and obviously the era that I was in, I don't know if you ever watched it back in the day, but I mean, just it was like my UFC now. Like, I literally
Hmm.
knew everybody, everything, old, new, like everything. I still would know it, I guess, a little bit, but like art, like, so I guess like 2000, like 10 to like 2014 was like the peak years for me of like watching professional wrestling.
Hmm.
And that was when it was the best, man. I mean, it was so good. And now, like, I couldn't even name you. Like, I've seen the guys that have been in it that are still in it, but like new people, I don't I don't know anybody.
I don't. Yeah. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't know.
I never even when I was younger, I didn't even really keep up with it. So
Yeah.
that's
Dude,
why the whole thing is
I
just
was
super
like,
like
yeah, dude, I was a crazy WWE fanatic back in the day. It's ridiculous.
really.
Like, I bought all like the action figures, like well over hundreds of dollars spent on them,
Oh yeah.
and I kept them in like a big blue bin.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then like I said, I went to WrestleMania 30, which was so awesome. Like, I to this day, I think it's still one of the best like live events I've ever been to,
Oh yeah.
topping a pro football game and a pro basketball game and a pro baseball game. But I still have not been to a UFC event yet. I want to go.
I have
So
to go.
yeah, like we said, if Connor and Chandler ends up in Dallas, Texas, that's not too far away from us. Might
Yeah.
have to sell my
Oh
car
yeah.
or something, but gotta figure that out. But yeah,
Get there.
the WWE is. I think as news starts to break about it, we'll be able to talk more about it and like
Mhm.
what's actually going to happen between those two companies.
Right.
Because you feel like something like that was bound to happen at some point,
Mhm.
the merging between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. It's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out, and especially all these other fights and all that stuff. But yeah, I think that's all I've got, man. Um, obviously, always a pleasure to have you on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Weekly. But yeah, thanks for stopping by, and thank y'all for watching. I'll be back next week. Most likely be doing this again after Holloway and Allen, which we'll
Oh
talk
yeah.
about that as that comes
It's gonna
on.
be a
But
good that's gonna be a good
yeah,
one.
yeah. Thank you, my friend, and thank you all for watching. Make sure to keep liking, subscribing, all that stuff. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace, guys.
Thank you.